And now, from Glasgow.
So hi there, welcome to stage 5 of my Lancaster build. We're going to be doing just a small amount today. I'm going to be going through Zenithal highlighting. Now, because my aim in this series of videos is to tell you about any techniques the first time I use them, I've never done a Zenithal highlight on these videos. So I will be explaining what it is. So as a result, all we're going to be able to do is just do a Zenithal highlight on our pilot. Spoiler alert, that's what we end up with. And I will be going through that in more detail in the video. But before we do that, let's have a look at what they're up to in Hachette land. So, as always, this is the video for Building with the Boys. My apologies, I do like that on full screen. So this is Building with the Boys. This is just the build section of his video. He does do a lovely chat at the end and obviously a little bit of talk at the beginning, but we're only dealing with what they're giving us in Hachette. So this is the box. These are the parts. Quite impressed with the parts, and I'm just going to pause there. You'll see down the bottom right we've got the pilot's backrest with the yellow dot on, so that will give us the opportunity to compare Hachettes with what I've achieved. Maybe I've done mine too big or too small, we don't know, we'll have a look. Very impressed with the fact they put them all in bags. I do like to keep the bags. I have a big box of bags which every now and again you go, I need a bag, so it's always handy to rummage through the box, and I quite like that box as well. I do tend to look at boxes and go, that's going to be a useful box. So yeah, these are all the parts, and as you can see in the top right, we have got there we are, there's the pilot's platform. Very, very, very busy. There's a lot going on in there. I'm a little bit worried at this point that the Hachette version may be a little bit more detailed than mine, but we'll see. I mean, worst case scenario, I could actually buy a couple of magazines from Hachette and use their parts. Some may say that's a bit cheating, some say it might be good. But yeah, no, I think, you know, use whatever you can. Obviously, if I do end up buying any Hachette parts, then I'll need to cost that in. So, what he's done so far, I can't find the pause button. So, he's popped the first part in already. He's now going to struggle with the second part because that little black back wall is in the way. Now, thankfully, I'll just play it now actually. Thankfully, Scott has not glued his part in. If you remember in the previous episode, we said, yeah, don't glue things in if you don't need to glue them in. And he hasn't done. Now, I actually think this is a bit of an own goal for Hachette. You see he's about to struggle there. But because that back wall is in, he can't get that part in. So now he's having to rip that wall out in order to make the space. There we go, he's taking it out. Now, had he glued that in, he wouldn't be able to do that. So now, obviously, if you're buying this week to week from the news agents, you're not going to know what's coming in issue 5. Now, obviously, the advantage, I'm just going to pause that a second. One of the advantages of having a scale model is that you can look at all the instructions. And I always say, look at all the instructions, every single stage, before you even touch the model. Then that way you can see what's coming. If you're buying a magazine week by week, you have no idea what's coming. Scott will mention this in different wording. I actually think they shouldn't have given us that back wall in issue 4. It might have made the one of the issues look a bit boring, but had they given us the small parts in issue 4 and the back wall in issue 5, I think that would have made more sense. But as you can see, once he's removed that wall, everything is going in absolutely fine. So it does look very busy. Now, at this particular stage, because I haven't built my platform up, I can't really tell if there's a lot more detail going into the Hachette or the Hong Kong. Some of these parts will be going into the Hong Kong, but I think some of these Hachette parts are more to do with the seats. So you then have to sort of say, are you particularly worried about the lack of detail, given that we may not even see them that well? I'm tempted to do a little bit of a fast forward here. There we go. So there is that platform built up, and that looks really, really nice. One thing I do like, let me just find the exact point. I really should be doing screenshots. There. So on the right hand side, you've got these map pockets. I do like that detail, and I will be very tempted to get some plastic card and just make some up myself. I think that's just going to add a little bit. Another idea that I've had, and I don't know if this is going to come with the Hachette at any point, I want to find some maps, and I want to print them out in 1:32 scale. I can fold them up and I can then pop them in the map pockets. Just adds a little bit of detail. Right, so what are we doing next? I can't remember what we're doing next. But yeah, he does go on about if you don't have to glue it, don't glue it. I mean, that back wall, if by pulling it out again it weakens it, just pop some glue on. Now these little details look really nice. I think these are to do with something to do with the chair, and they do look nice. Now one of the pieces we definitely get with the Hong Kong models version. The other piece I'm not so sure. Again, if I'm desperate for the extra detail, I could go out and get the Hachette version. But it's quite good. You know, watch these videos. There's at least 3 people building this on YouTube. Well, it's probably about 5 or 6 or more. Have a look at their videos. Use them as reference material. I mean, somebody else that I watch a lot, and I don't put his videos in, is Nigel's modelling bench. He's actually really going to be going to town on his Lancaster. But there's a couple of nice, really little pieces going in there. And it's just, I mean, I like the different colours. So things like these tubes and things, I'm not sure if they come with the Hong Kong version. But as you see, he's not glued anything in, and it's not coming off. If it's a piece that you would be handling, then I would say, yeah, glue it in. I don't like the back of that red bit. It's got a big old hole in it. Can I get away with part? There we go. Just wonder if I can get away with fast forwarding this a bit. Yeah, I'm going to fast forward it. Right, so this... Now, when I first saw this on Facebook, I looked at it and I went, there's something about that I really don't like. And then when I saw Nigel's modelling benches video, he said it. Those seat belts look way too thick. Now, at this point, I'm going to do a cut, and then I'll show you my seat belts, and then I'll show you why I'm not even going to put the seat belts in. Okay, so these are the seat belts that come on the photo etch, and you can see they're a lot thinner. There's the actual seat in question, so they're a lot thinner. But I'm actually not going to be using those. They're very nice. The reason I'm not going to be using them is because, as you can see, if I can get a focus in, the seat belts are actually built into the pilot. And again, these are quite thin. These are about the same thickness as the photo etch provided to us. So this is what these thinner ones look like on the pilot. Those ones, I really don't like them. I'm so sorry. I just don't like them. So that actually brings up another conversation. I've done part works with Hachette, and they've given us figures. What I'm actually talking about here is the Route Master bus, 1:12 scale, and they did give us a driver, a conductor and a few passengers. The question's been going around on Facebook, will we get any figures with this? Now, again, I think this is an own goal for Hachette. I'm not going to add that onto my scores on the spreadsheet just yet. I will wait till the very end. But I think they've scored a big own goal. Picture this. The diorama is of the Lancaster flying over the lake, heading towards the dam. The propellers are going, the machine guns are going, but there's nobody in the Lancaster. So the big question I've got is, who's flying this thing? Who's releasing the bomb? Who's firing the machine guns? So that's a bit daft, and I really don't think they're going to be providing figures. There's two main reasons. One is this is a 1:32 scale pilot. Now let me put them in comparison to my finger. So you're going to get a figure about that big. Now, I think if you put one figure in a magazine and said, here's your parts for this week, you're going to go mental. You're going to go, oh, I've paid all that money and that's what I'm going to get. Now, to get, what are we looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 figures. If they did that at £10.99 an issue, that's almost £77 for 7 figures. It now makes my figures at £73, which is conversion from dollars plus postage at £73. It makes my figures look cheap. Another reason is you would obviously, if you get figures, you want them painted. To factory paint these figures, I just don't think you're going to get the detail. And then the third reason why I believe there's no figures coming, if they're going to give you a figure, why would they put the seat belts in that seat? So I think you're getting no figures, and if they did provide the figures, I think you're better off buying aftermarket parts. Find out what issues the figures are coming in. They may do add-ons at the end. It's not unknown for part works to add issues. You know, they might say this is 130 weeks and then they extend it by 10 or 20 weeks. They've done that with the Back to Future, I believe. They've done that with the Doll's House, was it? Various part works have been extended. But I don't think there's figures coming with that. And I've got to be honest with you, I would be ripping that seatbelt out if that was mine. So, he doesn't actually build the seat on camera, but he does build a few bits. Now, as you can see, this bit, it definitely needs glue. Right, so this is where I have a concern. So he's built the arms up, and the arms have been built together exactly the same as mine. Small fiddly part, glue it on. So there's no difference. If you feel you're buying the Hachette because you don't have modelling skills, you're actually going to use the same modelling skills for the Hachette as you do for the Hong Kong models. So actually, it's proving that the scale model will work for you. Now that seat back, I'm not, there we go. Can you see the angle of that seat back? Now, I don't know an awful lot about the Lancaster, but I will point two things out. If you look just above the actual seat rest, I don't know if you can see my cursor, you've got these supports, and he's actually glued them in behind the supports. Let me now switch to mine. It's great when I can now do proper comparisons. You can see that my supports are glued onto the side of the seats, onto the seat back headrest. So the first question I've got is that too far forward? I'm not saying Scott has lack of ability. We haven't seen the instructions. As far as I'm concerned, he's done that exactly as the instructions say, in which case that's Hachette's bad. But also, I don't know the point of that. is that an adjustable seat rest, headrest, in which case it's absolutely fine. Scott's happens to be nice and forward, mine happens to be back. But on the whole, I think it's really nice. I do like it. I do query that seat back. So, and I think that's the end of the building section. So, yeah. So there's Scott doing his classic, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And I'm really happy with it. So, let's go over to what I'm doing on my build. So, hello there. So today we're just going to do one little job. We're going to do what I'm going to call, well, I'm going to call it because it's called that, Zenithal highlighting. So what Zenithal highlighting is, it serves 2 or 3 purposes. First of all, obviously, it primes the model. There is a big debate over whether you need to use primers, but this is resin, so yes, you do need to use a primer. That's a given, because the paint just doesn't want to stick to resin. Doesn't matter how good the paint is. So obviously that's the first use, is it primes it, it allows the paint to stick to it. Secondly, depending on which direction you want to go, it actually, that's coming off, there we go, it actually helps you determine the highlights. If you have a look, you can see all this little detail, and when you come to paint it, I mean this is more for figure painting, there's certain areas you want to paint in a lighter colour. And what it basically does, it's kind of like kind of like putting stabilizers on a bike. It really does help you. It highlights all the top areas, and then it leaves the darker areas, the shadows, a lot darker, so it helps you paint. Thirdly, I'm not experienced in this, but with figure painting there's a new thing called contrast paints. What contrast paints are is essentially slightly thinned paints, but they're not thin, they've got less pigment in them, so when you paint, the primer underneath really does show through more. So if you've got a bit that's let's say his arm, you've got part of it is black, part of it is grey, and part of it is white, it will produce the natural shades just with one coat of paint. So how do we do it? We need 3 primers. We actually need a black for your base. That's running out, I need to buy some more. We have a grey, and then we have a white. But the method that I use, you don't really need grey, because what I actually do is I start off with the black, and then I add the white to the whatever's left in the airbrush. I just chuck some white in, and that obviously gives us a grey, and then I clean the airbrush out a little bit and we get white. So the first stage is exactly the same, so it enables me to show you how to do priming. So we give the primer a good shake. We pop the, help if I turn the air compressor on, won't it? I should really have put that on. Now I'm using my workhorse brush. It just there's no control on the airflow. All of the air pressure comes directly from the compressor. So I have to control it a little bit more with the trigger. It's not worth me controlling that trigger, because there are times when I want a little bit of primer and there's times when I want a lot. But this all makes sense in a bit. Right, so let's just run a little tiny bit of thinner through there. I just want to first of all make sure it's working fine, which it is, and I just want to get the inside of the airbrush a bit wet. So when we prime, we do 3 stages. Quite often I'll miss the 3rd stage out, which I'll explain anyway. Now this Stylerez, that's my preferred choice of primer. The primer that I bought for this project is somewhere. I actually bought the AK Interactive primer, there we go, which I forgot to use, but that's why I didn't buy any more primer. Right, so make sure that's coming out fine. Right, that doesn't look right. For some reason I've got primer coming through the airbrush with the nozzle closed, which suggests to me that the needle isn't down properly because it's not blocking it. Give that a try. That's better. Right, so primer. I'm not a chemist. I'm not experienced in painting. Primer isn't paint. Now I did watch a YouTube video the other day about the difference between priming and undercoating. This is going to be kind of both. A primer will prime the model ready to receive the paint. Undercoating is when you're doing a coat of paint and you want that colour to come through. As an example, if you painted the same red over black and then over grey and then over white, you would end up with 3 different finishes because the primer underneath will come through because we're doing nice soft layers. But we are doing this primarily for for a colour as well, actually. So this is a bit of both. So what I'm looking to do on a first coat, I'll start at the back because it's nice and fairly flat, and we're looking to just gently apply a little bit of primer and we're just going to dust it on. For some reason that's not coming through, don't know why. There we go. Right, so we're just applying just to get it covered, what they call a dusting. So if I show you the back, what I've done there, you see it's just a light covering. You compare it to the original, there's hardly any on. It's just to get a little bit of coverage on there. Like so. You know when you've done it, because if you've got a shiny piece, it essentially takes the matte off. Now this, because we're doing a very thin coat, it's going to dry nice and quickly, ready to receive the second pass. Okay, and we're moving the model around to suit the airbrush, because obviously if we start moving the airbrush we're going to spill all the paint, all the primer everywhere. Right, okay, so that's my first coat. It's not 100% coverage, but it's got, in fact I've just spotted that I've missed some areas, so but that's fine. Right, so we've got our first soft coat down. So the next coat, want to go a little bit heavier. If you want to thin your primer down a bit, you can, and we're going for full coverage. Okay, so we're just going to pull back on the trigger a little bit more, and the end result is that he will be black. He will be completely covered in primer. Now the thing about primer compared to paint is that you can't really obscure the detail. I don't know what voodoo magic it is, but you can put it on too thick. I won't advise you to purposely put it on too thick, but the number of times I've gone, oh, that's a bit thick, and it's not obscured any detail whatsoever. So there we go. So I've gone over him with a second coat, and now he's completely covered. So then we'll go a third coat. I'm sorry mister, you'll have to get down because I'm spraying chemicals. Ooh! No. Sorry guys, I don't know if I've... Yeah, so my apologies there, the cat just got off the table, and when I say the cat got off the table, I kind of pushed him off. I didn't push him off, I got him off. And he caught the microphone wire as we went. Right, so third pass. This is what some people call the wet pass. And we can bang the primer on. Make sure it's got full coverage. And the result of this is that he will be wet. And I'm calling that one done. So as you can see, that he's wet, that's because he's shiny. You can try and dry him off a little bit quicker by doing the old air coming out of the airbrush trick. But generally I will just I'll wait for him to dry. And you can see that because I've got him on a stick, unfortunately up his bum, but I've got him on a stick, so that means I can do the whole thing in one pass. So guys, I am going to let him dry up. Well, actually, because of the video, I'm gonna dry him off a bit, and then what we'll do now. Normally, you probably wouldn't prime him in black, and the reason you wouldn't prime him in black is because it's going to make the colours very, very dull. But for Zenithal highlighting, it is really, really good. So what we're going to do, he's almost done, so we will leave him. So for my next trick, what I'm going to do, normally I'd go on to grey primer next, but I might as well just put a bit of white in. Now I'm going to just tip off quite a bit of the excess. Might have tipped off a bit too much there, and then I'm going to put grey primer in, but because I've got black primer left in the pot, I'm just going to put some white primer in, and as you can see, it's going to go grey. Let's get one of my cheap mixing brushes. When I mix paints, sorry, I'm just reaching over to a drawer. I'd never use my brush. I actually use one of these. I get these from Poundland. They're the kids' painting brushes. I absolutely love them because they clean so easily, and I think you get 6 brushes like this and 2 or 3 big brushes, and if you, I think they're £1 or £2. And if I should forget to clean that, it's about 10p worth of brush. I'll just chuck it in the bin. I normally try and remember to clean them, but right, let's wait for that. There we go. So there was a bit of black left in the bottom of the cup, so obviously just wanted to let that pass through. Right, so what Zenithal does, I did look up the definition of Zenithal, and then I closed the web page. It basically means, have I still got it? It basically means from the centre. So what a Zenithal is doing is it's focusing everything on the centre. Now when I'm doing figure painting, normally I'm looking for a high spot, usually directly in front from about 45 degrees. I'm going to do it slightly different today because he is hiding inside an aeroplane. But what you're going to do is you're going to be aiming your brush quite strictly, aiming at the centre of the model, right? And then normally I'd come in at a 45 degree angle, so yeah, 45 degree angle, but I'm actually going to come in from this angle upwards. So I'm going to be covering this area, not so much the back, because obviously I want the focus, but the back I'll do from about 45 degree angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to find our sweet spot with the trigger, and I'm going to lock that in place because I want a nice constant flow. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to hit it from this angle, and what you'll probably notice, don't know if you'll notice it already, starting to lighten up. but because of the angle we're using, the airbrush can't get fully in. Don't know what's going on there, but suddenly it stopped flowing. I'm kind of exaggerating my movements a little bit. Just want to get in. So I'm doing this a little bit more than I would. I say normally I would hit it from this angle, but I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit more because I do want him to be a bit brighter. So you can see he's a lot lighter now. Okay, and this is the result we end up with. I'm happy with that. So now that we've got the grey on, can you see some of that detail is starting to pop a bit more? It's very awkward having this brought right to the camera because, whoops, the lighting is set quite high, so it's actually in shape, but that's what he looks like with the grey on. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to have to take a little cut because I'm going to have to completely clean my airbrush out. Remember in the last episode I flushed it with hot water? That is exactly what I'm going to do. I'll flush this with hot water because I want my white now to be white. So I'll see you shortly. Best airbrush cleaner I've ever come across. I can't remember what video I saw on that one, but I'm just so grateful to it. And it really doesn't take very long and it's so much less mess. Right, so last stage of the Zenithal highlight, we're going to use white primer. Now, there's a big debate over what the best primers are. I used to use Vallejo primer and I used to get speckling with white. And someone suggested to me to try this and I've never had speckling ever since. Now, is it the primer or is it that it was my airbrushing abilities, and just at the point when I started to use this I got better and I stopped getting speckling? I don't know. I did see a YouTube video where someone actually directly compared the two and he couldn't see much difference between the two, and he's a good airbrusher, so I say use the primer that you want to use. Right, so as I explained, when you do a Zenithal highlight, you go all over in black, you hit a 45-degree angle with the grey, so you're only going from that angle, and then with the white you would normally go directly from the top. And when I say from the top, I mean the figure in relation to the airbrush. If you're airbrushing like this, your figure wants to be like that. If you're airbrushing like this, now, because I want this a little bit brighter, remember I brought the grey down to about 90 degrees, and then, so I want my white to be about 45 degrees. So I'm making sure the white comes through. You won't need an awful lot of white because you're not priming all of it, and we're going to do exactly the same as we did with the grey, which is, I'm primarily going to hit at a 45-degree angle. Now you'll see there's bits that you miss. Don't worry about it because that is the whole point. You're going to miss parts of the detail, and because I'm hitting this from 45-degree angles, I'm going to hit it from above as well. Okay. And this is where the magic happens, in my opinion. Don't worry about it if you get a bit too heavy. And it looks like I put just enough in there. Or did I? So it might look like a bad priming job, but actually I've gone a little bit too white on one side somehow. Right, So I don't know if you can see from there, it's actually brought out a lot of the detail. It is primarily white, and that's because I've hit it from a lower angle than normal. But now can you see all those details in his trouser leg, in his boots? Look at the detail on the arm. So when we come to paint this, it will tell us which areas we want to go darker and which to go lighter. I'm actually going to go for the contrast method, and I'm actually going to put, sorry, my something's just popped up on the screen. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get the colour of paint that I need, and then I'm going to mix some medium in with it to make it a little bit more transparent, and I'm going to pop the paint onto there, and then you're going to find that where it's white it's going to come out a bit more vibrant, and where it's darker it's going to come out. Now look at that from underneath. See, that's all shadow. Because we're going to be looking at them from this angle, we're not going to see the trousers. They'll still come out the correct colour, but that's the whole point of a Zenithal highlight. That's what he looks like from underneath, quite black. That's what he looks like from that angle, and then when we switch to this, he's quite bright. So that is all I'm going to do on this one. That is a lesson in Zenithal highlighting. So as I said, the way that I'm going to do this is, the first time I do anything, I will go through in detail with you on how I do it. The next figures I'm going to Zenithal highlight them as well, but what I'm going to do on the video is say, right, I've Zenithal highlighted this, blah 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 blah. This is why these early videos are quite drawn out, talking about things rather than doing. So in the next episode I'm going to hope to paint him. So I'm going to do a little bit more research on the colours, because Guy Gibson, I'm told, he wears a shirt rather than a jacket. Now I was a little bit sceptical because I didn't have any sources for it myself, and also that's quite padded. This figure actually looks like he's got a jacket on, but I asked the guy where his sources were, and he actually said he got it from the film Dambusters. And I watched it again, and I noticed that his shirt seemed quite padded, so I'm going to go with that. So yeah guys, I'm leaving it there. So we will, oh, another thing, something that primer does really well, if you haven't cleaned up properly, and I can see that I've not cleaned up there, it really does show it. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a, let me find, round about there's a bit of a seam line going up his jacket. You can probably see it now I've pointed it out. I didn't see that on the unpainted model. Whether I'm going to do anything about it, I don't know. I might do, but it's not massively, and this is going to go inside the Lancaster. So yeah, I'm not going to do anything about it. Right guys, so I've got another airbrush to clean out, because as you can see I've got white primer in it. Because I was quite quick, I can use the same water that I used to clean the other airbrush out. So yeah, so we'll go over and we'll do the costings as we always do. We'll do a little rating on the video, and yeah, and I'll catch you next week when we'll be painting figures. So take care. So it's that time for the boring old costings. So issue 5, release date 22nd of March. Now Hachette users have spent $10.99 on their issue, and for only the second time I've not spent any money, which is fantastic. So the running totals is £41.95 for the Hachette version. And I'm still remaining at £471.41. Remember, I'll say this every video and I will bore you with it, £377.92 is my absolute must buy cost. £477 is what I've spent on optional extras as well, but the difference has gone down to £429.46. So what we're seeing at the moment is The big disadvantage with buying the scale model version is the initial outlay. So far, Hachette have not spent more than £11 in any given week. Slightly different with the subscribers. They spend £40 every 4 weeks, but it pretty much works out to the same thing. Right, so you'll see that I've given Hachette 2 points. The reason I've given them 2 points is, one, the parts that have come are nice parts. They do look nice, they're well looked after, they're packaged nicely. And the second point is the cockpit area does, or the pilot seat area does look a lot busier. It looks like there's so much more going on. And I'm actually concerned that there's more detail in the Hachette version than there is in the Hong Kong version. So I think they've got 2 very strong points. However, the reason I've given the Hong Kong version 2 points is purely 2 own goals from Hachette. Firstly, I don't like the order that they've told us to put those parts in. If I had gone, if I was doing that and I'd gone and glued that back wall in, it would have made life so much more difficult putting those parts in. They really shouldn't have told us to put that back wall in. Obviously, there will be ways and means of doing things, but I think one of the options will be to, where the parts will be quite difficult to fit in because they fit so snugly, I think a lot of people might end up just scraping the paint away and popping that into the hull, which then makes it a looser fit. Then that means that they have to use glue, and once you start using glue, it's pretty final. The second point that I've given to Hong Kong, again is an own goal for Hachette, is the seat belts. I think those seat belts on the Hachette version are awful. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, I really don't like them. And it's such a shame because if you look at the final tally, Hong Kong are out in front by 2 points. Had they not, if they'd have told us to put that wall in a different order, and either not given us seat belts or given us better seat belts, it would be level pegging now. And level pegging with £429 difference, I think most people would be watching this video going, as it stands right now, I firmly want the Hachette to win, because, you know, £400 difference for a scoring system that is showing them as both the same, you know, I don't know. So next week we are doing issue 6, and I will be working on a couple of things. Oh, there was one other thing that I did notice, and I'm going to show you my overhead view on this one. One thing I did notice with the Hachette version, that's the wrong, sorry, I'm doing a really bad job here. So one thing I noticed with the Hachette seat, which I did like, you'll see there are 4 circles on the bottom of the platform. On the Hachette version, they are holes, they go all the way through. I presume that's got something to do with reducing weight, perhaps, I don't know. So what I will be doing in the next issue, I'm actually going to drill those out. I do not have a go at Hong Kong for not doing those as holes, but I do like them as holes, so I will be drilling those out in the next issue. The next thing that I'm going to be looking at doing is I'm going to be adjusting the pilot's platform. Before I go any further, I know you're all going to be saying, Penny, why aren't you painting the pilot? I'll be absolutely honest with you, I haven't got the colours for it. So I've ordered the paint for it and it's on its way, hasn't arrived yet. So pilot's platform, I had a theory. I will go through all of this again when I do it. This pilot's platform is too high. Now, the first information I've got is that this is 17mm, it should be 11mm. Actually, I think that is correct but incorrect at the same time. I've worked out that 6mm difference is there. Do you see that? There's a let me point it out with a screwdriver. So this line there, is it that one or is it that one? There's one of these two. It's this one. This one there. So I think it's not so much that it needs to be reduced by 6mm. I think we need to extend this all the way across to there, remove all of this, and then reduce this platform so instead of sitting there, it will actually sit there. Now that is about 6mm, so to say 6mm is not wrong, but I think it should, the 6mm is based not on the height, it's actually based on this ribbing. So what I'm going to do in the next issue, the next stage, is I'm going to remove all of this ribbing there, and I'm going to run a tiny strip across there, and then I'm going to cut this platform off, and I'm going to reduce it, and instead of making it straight 6mm shorter, I'm actually going to make it to fit this new piece there, so it'll sit like that. So that's what I'm doing in the next issue. So we're going to get a bit technical. I'm going to be making a new tool specially for this job. This is the work in progress. If you don't know what any of these are, don't panic, because I'll tell you in the next issue. But yeah, so guys, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you next week. We'll be having a little bit of fun. Take care. Bye bye.